So here we are. Last time this is where we left it. I've decided to put this video into different smaller parts now. I guess just makes for an easy viewing. So we are right now in our Arkbird system, just as you can see. I've tried my best to make it look good here, but I don't know how it will come across. As I showed you, we will now go to the menu, but before we do that, let me give you a brief overview of what's on the screen. Okay, to your left hand side, and the bottom, 15.1 volts, 15.2 volts showing. This is the main voltage of your main battery, the flight battery. 12.6, this is supposed to be the voltage of your video, if you have a separate battery for the video. In this case, it's being powered by the main video. But that's how much it's providing to your video system. I will go into that in a bit more details later. The small number over that, which is showing 16 right now, is your milliamps consumed. The number over that is the real-time consumption of your milliamps. The F49% flashing, this has something to do with flaps. The G, 1 kilometer, that's your ground speed. The A is your airspeed. Keep going up that way towards the top. Satellites flashing 0. MAN is your mode. Now it's in manual mode. If it's at RTH, it will show RTH and so on and so forth. Then it's your 99 with the signal. That has something to do with RSSI. I have tried RSSI on it and it changes to volts if you try it with easy UHF. The little circle in between, this is basically your compass circle, which also shows on top your compass, which shows southeast, south and southwest. Now remember, the compass on this Arkbird system is the kind that you don't have to calibrate it every single time before you fly. So it's good to go as you chuck your plane up in the air. But that little circle and that line in between always shows your home. So if it's facing forward, then you're going towards home. And for example, if it's at 12 o'clock, then you're going home. If it's at 6 o'clock, you are going away from home, so on and so forth. The value next to it, which shows 99, is the vibration value. Apparently 99 is ideal. The lower you go, the worse it gets. Arkbird recommends somewhere over 70 or 80. I have seen it go as far low as 55 on my plane. Hasn't made much of a difference. It's been good. Then the value on your right hand side, which shows 0 meter, obviously is your height. And the value up on top with 0000 is the flight time. That will show the time of your flight. And obviously, right underneath in the bottom is a little home with 0 meters, which means your distance from your home. Right in the middle is the artificial horizon. This will show your horizon, basically how it is. And I'm just going to move the plane just a little bit up and down. And as you can see, the artificial horizon will move. That's your brief overview. Let's get straight into the menu. Again, press the transmitter stick to the right until you hear a servo twitch and you go into the menu. Now, let's go through this one from the top down to bottom. Obviously, you have the Arkbird logo and the version, which is V11023. As we go down, set home. When you press this button, I can't do it right now because I don't have any satellites. But when you have satellites in field, just to reassure yourself, you will engage that. And that will lock that place that you are in at that time with satellites as your home position. Let's come down to set control parameters. This is an important menu, so we will go into it. This is roll control, pitch control, and yaw control. This basically is asking you how much control do you want to give Arkbird over your servos. I have given it 85, 85, and 85%. I think it will be ideal if you give it 100, 100, and 100%. Basically, you're giving the full range of movement control of the servos to your Arkbird system. Because any expo and dual rates that you have dialed in into your radio will not work when the Arkbird is taking control of your plane. So it's a good idea to give it full percentage. I am at 85%. That's my comfort zone. I like it the way it is. You can experiment with that up or down. I don't think it's a good idea to give it too much down because the servos are not controlled properly. Another one is a neutral check. Now this is a good one and this is an important one. You have to do a neutral check every time you make a change into your Arkbird. That's what Arkbird say. I basically do a neutral check every time before I fly. Neutral check is put your aeroplane in a position where it's absolutely horizontally and vertically balanced. In other words, it's sitting in a position where it will track straight. And putting your plane just on a ground, on a horizontal level piece of ground, isn't making it level. You have to make sure that the tail and the front and the side are balanced. This is basically telling Arkbird system that this should be your natural straight position. Every single thing comes back to this. This is where you're level. And once you have done that, you will click the neutral check and wait for it. Do the left stick, do the right stick, and it will save you neutral check. Okay, and just to give you an idea on that one, I'm going to go in here. You do a right and a left, and then your neutral check gets complete. Now, let's come down. Launch assist off. I've talked about launch assist in the first part of the video. Launch assist is where, if you turn it off, you will take the plane in your hand, run with it, and when you get to the speed of 5 kilometers an hour, the motor will spool up, the plane will take off, and it will go to a certain height, safe height, I think it's 30 meters if I'm not wrong, and it will control it until then. The Arkbird will take control of the servos and give you that height, and then it gives back the control to you. A great way of launching an aeroplane that you otherwise find to be a difficult one to launch. Custom mode. This is important here. I told you about the 3-position switch on the Arkbird system. The 3-position switch will choose 3 different modes while you are at flight. Number 1 is a permanent mode, which is RTH. Number 3 is also a permanent mode, which is AST, that is automatic stabilization. Number 2 is a mode which is not permanent in my opinion, and you can change it to whatever mode you want. That's where you come through custom mode. So if you go into custom mode, you can change it to lock, height and direction, gyro, hover, waypoint, RTH. You wouldn't want to do that RTH because that will make 2 of your modes as RTH. Remember, mode 1, the 3-position switch, position 1 is permanently RTH anyway, and position 3 is permanently AST. This is position 2, and this is what you want anything that you want to fly with. I usually fly with either gyro or lock, height and direction, but you can also do lock direction and you can also do lock height. They're self-explanatory, you know what they do. I do with lock, height and direction. This seems to work the best, but that's what AST is supposed to do as well. So you can put a gyro in here as well. That's your choice, what you want to fly with. This will then be available to you at position 2 of your 3-position switch. Hover yield, I think this is something to do with multicopters. I'm not going to go into this. And a height source is air pressure for me. You can also have a GPS height or air pressure. It works with air pressure for me, so I keep it at air pressure. We're going to go out of this menu and we're going to go into set RTH parameters. This is an important one. This is where you set how your return to home function will work, so make sure you pay quite attention to this. Maximum roll, maximum up, maximum down. Okay, this is where you restrict Arkbird from making really severe moves. Okay, depending on your plane. Now I know my plane is not designed for very severe moves, so I have kept maximum roll to 35 degrees, maximum up and down to 35 degrees. I don't want Arkbird doing any more severe maneuvers than that when coming back on RTH, but obviously you can increase and decrease that to your own choice. Elevate angle. This is where you tell Arkbird how far to elevate the nose of the plane when it's in RTH mode. I tried 4 on that one. It didn't work very well for me. In fact, the plane started wobbling and oscillating, so I brought it down to 3.5, and this seems to be a sweet spot. But as you will see in one of my next videos when I'm going to do a Q&A, this is important to take care of oscillations. We're down RTH throttle. I'm at 70%. This is the initial throttle that the RTH will catch at whatever point it is. Remember, it has an airspeed sensor, which means it does automatic throttle management. Then it will take care of the throttle itself, and depending on the wind and your altitude and which way the plane is going, it will automate the throttle. But the starting point, you're setting down at 70. I've had it at 50% as well. It's basically your choice, but I would recommend setting it high up, 70 or 80%, so that the initial throttle burst is enough for your RTH. Auto throttle, the thing that I was just talking about. Yes, of course, you want auto throttle. That's the best advantage of having the airspeed sensor. Safe speed 40 kilometers an hour. This is the maximum your aeroplane will go in RTH mode, not more than that. If it gets to going more than that, it will turn off the motor and balance the speed. You can obviously increase and decrease it. Safe height 80 meters for me. That will differentiate for you. You could be flying in the most plainest field in the world, you can set that to 15 meters, or you could be flying at the base of the Himalayas, in which case you'll have to set it up higher. Look around you and see the obstacles around you, how high and how tall are they, and you basically want to set it higher than that. The last thing you want is to crash into something coming back home. Throttle safe, yes, very important. Throttle safe, if you activate this, this means that when the plane is on the ground and you're playing with the settings and whatnot, and you by mistake set it into RTH, the motor won't just spool up and chop things off and maybe even hurt you. So with throttle safe, yes, when the plane is under a certain altitude, I think it's 5 meters, so when it's close to the ground, it would not spool the RTH, spool the motor, so save you from being hurt. And airspeed calibration, this I usually put at 100%, and I've kept it at 100%. That's probably the calibration of the airspeed, which works through the sensor. Let me go back to the next menu, and this is OST parameters. This is another good one. The Arkbird 2.0 has had lots of criticism for how the screen looks, and it's very busy and very cluttered. I don't find it so personally. I like information, but each their own, I guess. In this Arkbird you have 2 versions of screen available, but we will get to it in a minute. Language, English or any other language that you might want to have. Let's go through it. Let's see what kind of languages you have available. Ooh, so you have English and Chinese. Apparently now I'm in Chinese, and if you click back you're in English. So, well, you only have English or Chinese available. Show latitude. Sorry, let's go back into OST parameters. Show latitude and longitude, I guess. I've put that no. I guess it'll be useful if you want to know where you are at satellite longitude and latitude, and if you land somewhere far away from you, you'll be able to find it. I've put it in no, again your choice. AD calibration, that is, I think, the voltage calibration in here, and this is where, I'll tell you what, I had a little problem. Let me explain this. When I installed my 4S battery into the current sensor, it was showing 18.6 or 19 point something voltage. And that just wasn't acceptable. So what you need to do is, if you're using a 4S battery, this is not for a 3S battery, but if you're using a 4S battery, you'll have to come down to this AD calibration and bring it down as close to 12 volts as you could. And once you do that, your 4S voltage will show your true voltage. And that's important. And not only did I have to do that, I also went down and did the current MAH calibration to 50%. That will show half of the MAH that you're consuming, but your voltage will be correct. Going to OSD pattern, this is default, and then you have a fighter. Let me show you that. Okay, let's get out of this. In. This is your fighter screen, by the way, and this is the screen that people seem to criticize. They say, oh, it's too busy. All of the information is mostly the same that I told you in the very start, apart from these circles on the side, which roll as you go up in height. As you go up in height, they will roll, and you see that, and your bank angle, and you also, your horizon is basically 3 different vertical horizons. You see that? That's all that there is. Now obviously some would like that. I don't very much, so I keep it at default. And default is the one that you saw before. It's the one without all this jingles thrown in. And to me the default is a very simple one. So I'm going to go into OSD pattern, fighter, and default. PAL or NTSC, in my case is PAL. Show RSSI, yes, it's useful if you are using RSSI. If you're not, say no, it will remove the number from where I showed you before. Current main calibration, for me, it's at 50%. You can do it at 100% as well, but I already explained to you how with me the 4S cell was not showing the full voltage. So when I've done that, it's now showing full voltage. That's basically what it is to me. But just for the sake of testing, let's go up there and let's increase it all the way to 100%. Let's see whether it will still show the true voltage for me. There we go, we're 100%. Let's get out of this. Let's go into main screen. Yes, it is showing the 15.1 volt true, and now your MAH will be true to what it is. Remember, you have to turn this 12.5 volt closer to 12 in order to get the right and true representation of your 4-cell battery. It sounds a little bit complicated, but that's just the way it is, because if you don't dial it down to 12, the eddy calibration, it will show 18 here, and no 4-cell battery is ever 18. We all know that. Let's go back into menu. Right, so we were in set OSD parameters, and obviously here your units are metric or imperial. Miles per hour, meters, miles, meters, feet, you know, miles, kilometers, feet, meter, all that kind of stuff. I keep it in metric. That seems to work for me. And low power alarm, 14.8 volts. This is for your main flight battery. Obviously I'm using a 4-cell, so at 14.8 volts, it's not going to beep or anything. It will just, the voltage will flash at you. That's all that it will do. Let's get out of this and go back down. Flight mix and gimbal. Remember in the last video I told you that if you are flying an aeroplane with a mix on it, do not activate the mix in the radio. I meant that because this is where you're going to work on that. Let's just say I have Elevon. Let's go into that. You see, this is where you will reverse. You see, it's normal. If you press it, it'll get inverse. And normal again. That's because if one of your surfaces is not going the way it is, instead of reversing it in the radio, you can reverse it in here. And also, in mix, if you can see, I am on F wing, flying wing. You can have in here a normal plane, you can have a V-tail, a bimotor, a butterfly FW, a bimotor ST, whatever that means. As you can see, there's a myriad of choices for you in here. I'm in flying wheel, obviously. Gimbal roll, gimbal pitch, gimbal R, gimbal P. This is if you're using a gimbal for your camera. Now there is a mode in Arkbird where it's called a PTZ mode if I'm not wrong, and what it does in that mode is it controls the angle of the gimbal as the plane pitches left and right. So it can do all that. I'm not using a gimbal, but if you do, you have that. Flap mode is off, and flap max and flap 0, this again goes to a plane where you're using flaps with it. I am not, so I'm not going to go into that. Fence area set. This is where you will set your fence mode. I've turned it off, but if you turn it on, you will be giving yourself a geofence from which you cannot fly away. So for example, your north distance, your east distance, your south distance, your west distance, this is 150 meters in here, but it's turned off right now. You can give it a distance. So if you don't want to fly too much far away from you and you want to have an invisible fence around you, Arkbird has got you covered. And safe height is a good function as well. This is where you tell Arkbird not to let my plane go higher than that. Now we know that there are legal limitations in almost all countries regarding your altitude. So it's a great function to set. 400 feet is the maximum that you can go, and 80 meters is quite way below that. You know, you can set yourself a height fence. I mean, you can obviously, if you just want to do a height, you can turn all of these to 0 and turn the height up. So then you can have a fence for your height. It's a great function to keep you within an invisible parameter, in my opinion. Let's go out of this. Waypoint set 1, waypoint set 2. Now remember I showed you about the manual mode back here in control. See, I'm in custom mode LKHD. But if you wanted to fly waypoints, you would go to custom mode and you would activate waypoint mode. And once you've done that, you will come back out and you will go to waypoint set. And this is where you will program your waypoints. This is where you program which way your plane will fly, how it will do it, and you can set different waypoints. This is a set of 1 waypoints, and you can do a waypoint set 2 as well. So that's as easy as that, setting up your waypoints. But you have to have turned on your waypoint in the custom mode in your position 2 of your 3-position switch. In my case, it's lock height and direction, which is where I am now. Get back out of this. This is flight record. This will show you the record of what you have done until now. It will save the details of what you have done. Better not to go into that one. And reset all to defaults. That's just about it. That's all the menu functions in a nutshell. Obviously, you can go into it in more details in your Arkbird. And now, to get out of this, you will just come back down to your toggle switch. This is the 2-position switch. That's the 3-position switch. Toggle the 2 positions up and back. And you are into manual mode. And as you can see, now we are in the default screen, not the fighter screen. And to me, this is a very simple and a very non-busy looking screen where Arkbird gives you a lot of information, but not too much. Remember, we're not showing latitude and altitude, and that's basically your home Arkbird screen. Alright, now this was a run through the menu. The video is now at 21 minutes. It's very long, but it had to be because I wanted to go everything separately. There'll be another video coming in which I'll be talking about FAQs and troubleshooting. Basically, it's questions that I've seen people ask on RC groups. It's questions that I've asked myself, and it's problems that I've faced myself. And I have over time found a way of answering them myself. So I'll be making a video asking my questions and answering them. Tiny little problems if you have this system and if you come across them, how to cure them, how to take care of them, and how to be back in the sky. Right, so stay tuned for another video coming up. Thanks very much for joining me. See you guys in another video.